say the Knights dominated every facet of the slog and the slop would be an understatement, but the win was aided by a woeful performance by Manly. The Blue and Reds won the scrums 14-3, due mainly to the errors made by the Maroons. In the condition, it was a battle of the forwards, a war won well by the Newcastle Six.
I think the forwards, as usual in this game, it's a forwards battle. We laid the foundations and continued just playing the percentage game and right through the whole game, played for 80 minutes and really tackled our heart out when we didn't have the ball.
An amazing crowd of 15,220 turned up to cheer their new heroes to the emphatic victory.
They had reports of a 30,000 crowd, and I was really looking forward to a fine day and playing in front of 30,000. It would only be my second time, but 15,000 is just as good as 30,000 on a dry day. And when they really got behind us going and they really tuned in on the momentum, it's tremendous.
Michael Hagan set up a first half lead with a clever individual try in the 35th minute. The lead could have been increased midway through the second half when Gary Worth and Steve Fulmer combined to cross, but the try was disallowed.
I think he's going to go in. He's close to the line. He's put the ball down. No try. No try.
You've got to go along with what they say, but I thought I scored, and I think a lot of other people thought I did, but lucky it didn't have any effect on the game.
One of the hardest jobs for the players this week will be to come back to earth for this week's game against Penrith.
Yeah, we forgot about yesterday now, and we're just planning on this weekend, where Penrith have got a very physical pack and young side, as we are, and I think we can match it with them, and if we make the less mistakes, I think we can win it.
Two years ago in England while on holidays, Jeff heard that the World Disabled Water Skiing Championships were on and decided to enter. He returned to Newcastle as the world champ and with it picked up the NBN Disabled Sports Star of the Year award. Jeff has been at it again at the World Titles held in Perth, where he not only retained his world title but broke 3 world records on the way. He tricked 1,400 points to win by 1,000 points. He broke the slalom record with 2 boys at 55 and then clinched the overall championship with an outstanding jump of 32.5 metres to smash his own world mark by 3.5 metres. So dominant was Jeff in the jump event that his nearest rival was a mammoth 18 metres in arrears.
Set in the Blue Haven hairdressing salon in a small country town, Lipstick Dreams is about 4 girls who are looking for a special moment of glory. Facing all their insecurities, the girls enter a talent contest.
The play is about their struggle to get on in the talent contest, and the struggles get worse and worse and disasters get more and more, and the play ends with them doing their act.
Starring Lorraine Bailey of Play School and Sullivan's fame, the play watches the transformation of the girls, Jo, Jess, Jan and Jenny, from backroom girls into a slinky, hip-swinging quartet. Lipstick Dreams begins a 3-week season at the Playhouse tomorrow night, later moving to Sydney. And with offers of a London season and a TV series, co-writer Simon Hopkinson says the life of the play could end up echoing the performance of its characters.
If you want it, just go out and go for it. Then good things will happen. But if you just sit on your butt all the time, nothing's going to happen. And these 4 women get up and give it all they've got, and at the end are superbly triumphant.
Mr. Lewis wasted no time in showing his concern at the need for massive development of the coal industry in this state. He said 14 mines have closed in the past 3 years because of economic unviability, and they must be replaced with new, efficient operations. Coal is the state's #1 export revenue earner, with 17,000 people employed directly in exporting 41 million tonnes worth around $2,000 million. Mr Lewis said the industry is undergoing major restructuring to be more efficient, but needs the right environment for 11 planned new mines to go ahead. Mr Lewis said this could happen in 3 to 5 years if the government speeds up mine approvals and varies rail and port charges to accommodate currency and market fluctuations and supply demands. That major restructuring was the main discussion topic on the first day of the 3-day Miners' Federation National Conference at the Newcastle City Hall. It's 14 years since the Federation last held a national conference, and it's no coincidence that it comes after the most turbulent period in mining history. No resolutions were passed today, but this morning Federal President John Maitland laid down the aims of the conference to delegates.
It's looking for particular decisions. Some of those decisions will certainly be directed towards what we are going to do with our organisation in the future. It will look at amalgamation, it will look at restructuring of industry, and it would look at the policies that need to be put in place to pursue those particular areas.
Also, on the broad subject of mining, the state government has been asking the people of the Beresfield area how they would feel about coal mining in their midst. Some years ago, R.W. Miller proposed a combined open cut and underground mine at Ironbark Creek. While the project was shelved, the government doesn't want to sterilise the mineral reserves by approving zoning changes for residential developments or cause friction in years to come if Millers or anyone else decides to proceed. Mineral Resources Minister Pickard has appointed a committee to look at the local community's attitude to mining and last night heard from objectors. One person who'd not be happy with any mine in the area is Jack Robson, a nurseryman in Wheatley's Drive at Beresfield.
We're trying to run a nursery here and it's far too close. It's 150 metres away from my back gate. Now this is going to be a hell of a big operation, something like looking at 2 million tonnes of coal a year, and we wouldn't be able to move for dust.
Obviously at odds with the feelings of the industry, Mr Robson's views highlight the dilemma any government faces in balancing the needs of a vital export industry with the desire of some people for a quiet life near virgin bush.
The Hunter Port Corporation will operate and manage the Port of Newcastle, which handles the highest tonnage of any port in New South Wales. Similar corporations will be established in Sydney and Port Kembla. Initially, the Hunter Corporation will be overseen by the MSB Board of Directors, but it will have delegated authority to set prices and incur expenditure. Transport Minister Bruce Baird says the corporation would be granted full autonomy as soon as possible. The chairman of the Hunter Port Corporation is expected to be a member of the MSB Board of Directors, while the chief executive of the MSB will also be a member of the Hunter Port Corporation Board. Other members would have a strong affiliation with the region serviced by the port. The government is also encouraging private sector involvement in development and ownership of port facilities and provision of port services. It also wants reform of pricing structures along user pay lines and streamlining of the MSB's central management function. Where practical, the government also plans to identify and separate the commercial, non-commercial and regulatory functions of the MSB and place greater emphasis on strategic planning. "44-year-old John Delaney had been operating the crane lifting heavy longwall mining equipment onto the back of a semi-trailer when disaster struck around 9:25 this morning.
When he's had it ready to go onto the semi-trailer, the load shifted or whatever, and the crane has overbalanced and crushed the cabin of the crane against the rear end of the semi-trailer.
Police and ambulance rescue officers were quickly on the scene at an engineering firm on Griffiths Road, undertaking the difficult task of freeing the man from the cabin of the 16-tonne crane. Mr Delaney was trapped by his left leg. 2 other cranes were brought in to stabilise the fallen machinery, while the fire brigade worked to hose down diesel which poured from the immobilised crane's fuel tank. An investigation is underway to determine the exact cause of the accident which led to the precarious rescue operation.
The danger to the patient was the crane moving again, and also a danger to the rescue officers here and the ambulance personnel, paramedics and ambulance officers. At any time, one wrong move, it could have come down on us too.
After working with hydraulic and cutting equipment for more than 2 hours, ambulance and police rescue officers managed to free the man and pull him from the cabin. Mr Delaney was taken to the Mater Hospital for observation, but despite the ordeal, escaped serious injury. Belinda Borissow, NBN News.
Local horticulturalists say the Central Coast's mild climate, free-draining soil and close proximity to Australia's biggest market, Sydney, makes it ideal for a range of exotic vegetables. And to prove the point, a field day was held at the Department of Agriculture's Summersby station on Friday to convince growers and restaurateurs that Asian vegetables have a promising future.
We're encouraging them to grow a lot of other crops and consider other means of producing agricultural goods, and Asian vegetables, as we see, is one that offers a lot of opportunities here. We think that being close to Sydney is a big advantage for people growing Asian vegetables.
To the uninitiated, this may look like an inedible root, and these look like leaves perfect for the rabbit. But don't be fooled. These and many other Asian vegetables can be grown in a third of the time of most European varieties. And judging by the increase in the number of Asian restaurants, the market potential must be enormous. Chinese broccoli or gay lum, long white radish or daikon and Chinese cabbage are ideal for the deep sandy loam soils of the Central Coast mangrove mountain area and river flats of the Hunter River around Maitland. And some could even be exported during the Asian nation's growing off-season. The delicate flavoured vegetables are also ideal for use in home cooking.
I think there's a tremendous demand for it. We have a big population of Asian people who've come to the country in fairly recent times, and ordinary people go to their local Asian restaurant once every 10 days or something, the statistics is, but we can't buy a lot of that produce in our supermarkets and local fruit and vegetable shops, and I'm sure if it was available for ordinary people to buy, that they would be very interested in purchasing it.
Mr Copeman's address looked at future directions, a title unashamedly borrowed from a Liberal Party policy document released last year. He looked at employment, the economy, health, education and pollution, before coming to the subjects everyone was waiting for, coal mining and industrial relations. On these, Mr Copeman said Australia suffered from being too concerned with looking after the underdog, even though that in itself is a great attribute. He said mining unions had been allowed to act outside the law, and that the Coal Industry Tribunal should be brought back under the umbrella of the Industrial Commission. And on the subject of the mining union's repeated calls for a national coal marketing authority, Mr Copeman said such bodies could only disadvantage producers. Work practices are what led to the Robe River standoff, and Mr Copeman said the resulting changes there led to a turnaround from a loss to a profit. But he said such changes elsewhere can only happen gradually.
Our recovery from this present disastrous position is going to be slow, but we've got to set about on it, and the present government is doing nothing, in my judgment, about that at all. It is going to be hard for any government to bring about the changes to work practices, because ultimately they have to be done in each mine, in each factory, by the management and the people working in the factory sitting down and talking about it together. And the government can only make slow changes there. They can't impose those changes easily.
Despite continual assurances from the Water Board that discharge from the Burwood Beach outlet is safe, more complaints than usual were registered today. The residents say they are tired of not being able to run along their favourite beach without stepping over solid lumps of sewage and thinking twice about fishing from the nearby rock platform. One local surfer who only wanted to be identified as Jason says he has surfed the area all his life and has watched the pollution increase over recent years. The smell here at Burwood Beach is quite offensive and the water colour is less than flattering. All factors which Jason says, no matter how good the surf is, you just don't surf at Burwood Beach when an easterly or a southerly wind is blowing.
The whole beach is just covered in sewage, raw, most of the time, solid bits, just filthy.
Jason says he's also an avid fisherman and he isn't really keen on eating the fish he catches around Merriweather.
Definitely not.
What do you do with the fish then that you catch?
Give them away or sell them.
A Water Board spokesman acknowledged today's problem and said that the wind and currents were keeping the sewage in an isolated pocket. The spokesman then went on to explain that the tunnel connection work is almost completed and should be finished by late next month. Assurances were also given that during the changeover period, no raw effluent would be pumped out into the surf zone from the Burwood Beach pipeline. The Water Board say the new pipeline will not contaminate other areas and surrounding beaches will meet water quality standards almost 100% of the time. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
The risk comes from leakages of PCBs, or biphenyl chlorides, found in old capacitors in old fluorescent lights and ceiling fans. PCB is considered to be a carcinogen. Dr Kenyon, a divisional specialist from the Department of Occupational Health and Safety, visited Newcastle High School to investigate the health risks to school children and those working in schools after exposure to PCB spills or vapours. He took blood samples from 13 people, some from Newcastle High, the rest from different public schools.
There are 47 schools that have been identified with PCBs, and there are others that will be tested and a program put into effect to remove them over the next few years. Within the next 3 to 4 months, every school we will know where the PCB fluorescent lights and fans are. The Public Works Department work with us, and they will be the people going to each school and identifying the schools where PCB fluoros and fans are.
While the Department of Education won't comment on which schools are affected, it is known that in the Hunter, Newcastle High, Warners Bay High, Cardiff High, Kotara High School, New Lambton and Wallsend public schools are affected.
At the end of the program we should see every fluorescent light and fan in schools with a PCB clear sticker on it.
Good afternoon, I'm Rebecca Skinner. Leaking PCB lights at Swansea Public School have prompted some parents to remove their children from school today. An action by the Department of Education has come under harsh criticism from parents and school staff.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6. For a broad overview of opinion, we sought comment from 3 observers from completely different spheres: the investment business, commerce and the trade union movement. Bernie Toohill was until recently with the economics department at Newcastle University. He's now a consultant with investment advisor Bain & Company. Mr Toohill said there was little choice for the Hawke administration.
I don't think the government really had any options. They promised in last August that they would actually give tax cuts. Everyone knows that in terms of wages, real wages have declined in the period that this government's been in, and if the accord is to remain a working proposition, they had to deliver. So that even though many commentators are saying that now is the wrong time, interest rates are high and all these things, and we know this, I don't think the government really had any option.
Peter Rundle, president of the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce and Industry, acknowledged the desirability of the package, but warned any benefit could dissipate without improved productivity.
Well, most people welcome the tax cuts, and I guess the retail industry welcome the extra money in the consumers' pockets. But what concerns the Chamber is whether these rises are going to reflect them, so it'll be real rises. Whether inflation and high interest rates will take away that rise, because really you can't have a wage rise without a productivity improvement.
Of course, the trade union movement welcomed the extra income for workers, but Newcastle Trades Hall Secretary Peter Barrick said a wages blowout of up to 15% could have occurred without the government's offer.
Certainly there were pressures that there are sectors of the economy that were prepared to pay more. We've heard stories that in the metal industry of $60 and $70 being offered to skilled tradesmen because of the shortages in those areas. I suppose we can always say that it's never enough. But I think in the current circumstances that the union movement will be satisfied that there has been recognition that there was need to be relief from that restraint, and to that extent I think that it will be acceptable.
The handling in the first 5 minutes was dreadful, and it was the Central Coast who put first points on the board with a penalty. Newcastle equalised 4 minutes later, but then the Coast went in for the first try of the match. Fullback Peter Davis chipped over the top. It was well gathered by winger Joshua Jamieson, and he scooted around to score under the posts. That try really stung Newcastle, and from there on they controlled the match. 5'8" Chris Croce got Newcastle back in the game when he scored off a good grab and pass by Tony Amity in the 18th minute. And then Peter Parr scored wide out after tremendous lead-up work by Newcastle. Parr's conversion of his own try had to be seen to be believed, but the flags went up and Newcastle were in front and they never looked back. Fielding the youngest team in this year's National Basketball League, the Falcons have had a solid preparation to the year, and last night's win has given their army of supporters plenty to enthuse about. Ken Cole's kids dominated the match after quarter time, with Jerry Everett and Michael Johnson outstanding. The 21-point victory was even sweeter with a marvellous all-round game from Bill Jones, who pulled in 18 big rebounds and scored 17 points. Grant Kruger played well, as did all the new recruits. But Everett with 37 points was the star of the show. At Cardiff today, one of Newcastle's hardest working politicians was remembered. Ken Booth was a long-time patron of the Cardiff Netball Club, and today his wife Gail dedicated a plaque to the memory of Ken Booth, and Ken's daughter Mrs Christine Edder renamed the area the Ken Booth Netball Centre. Along with the plaque, John Mills presented a shield which Cardiff and South Wallsend netball clubs will play for on an annual basis. Devotees of Okinawan Goju-Ryu karate gathered in Newcastle this weekend to be instructed by the Grandmaster Mario Higeonna. Over 200 participated in the training and grading sessions at Lambton High School, and they came from all states of Australia. Among their number was Tina Clemens from the Wallsend Club, who was the only junior girl in Australia to hold a black belt. And the group take their training very seriously, even the very young. But there's no way in the world that you would want to tangle with some of these chaps. Not only are their schools supreme, the yell and the look would be enough to send most packing.
The Probus Club is for retired or semi-retired people. It is a non-profit organisation and it has no political affiliations. Its main aim is to bring people together, and that's certainly what happened today. More than 700 people from 36 clubs in the region gathered at Spears Point Park for a Friendship Day. Hosted by the Toronto Ladies Club, the day included an official welcome by Mayor Ivan Welsh and presentation of certificates to those clubs which participated. There were also walks around the foreshore, a trip on the Wanji Queen and games for the over 55, the highlight being the 250-centimetre dash.
Go, 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 both sides, okay?